Hello and welcome to a Monday night. That feels weird to say. We're obviously used to doing Tuesday nights. We've got a very special episode lined up tonight. Look, we said we were done for the year. We've now thrown you 2 extras, so we lied. We do that sometimes, and obviously we're pretty excited about this one. Look, first of all, thanks to our sponsors. Time for a chat, ZMS Trophies, Bay Vista, Eurowork, Tate Sports Cards, Non-Stop Landscapes, Wink Media, X-Visor, Spot on Hose and Fittings, Tony Mustafa Mortgage Choice, JD's Buyers Agents, Riverside Brewing Co, BMA Trucking, and of course, Paralease Club. Like we said, this is a special episode. We know there's a lot of Parramatta fans excited out there. We're obviously, like I said, pretty excited to do this as well. I just want to highlight a couple of things first of all. Obviously, we're interviewing Jarryd Hayne tonight. This interview is about Jarryd Hayne's rugby league career, and that's obviously what we're going to be talking about this as well. So I shouldn't need to say it, but I want everyone, I know there's a lot of diehard Parramatta fans in the comments. Please be respectful. Jez will obviously be in the background producing this and keeping a fair eye on the comments. So, look, if you do something stupid, say something inappropriate, or try to be a smart ass, we know there's trolls in the world, you will be removed, and that won't be removed from now. They'll be removed for good. So any future podcast you won't be able to be involved with. Look, as we always do in our podcasts as well, we are going to do a giveaway. I've got a $50 Bay Vista voucher to give away. I've got a carton of beer thanks to our sponsors, Riverside Brewing Co. And I've got a $100 worth of Paralease Club vouchers as well left over from this year. So that's going to go to one person. So all you have to do is share. Once you've shared this, obviously comment, share, Jez will start, and we'll draw that towards the end. So thanks for being here. Let's bring everyone in and now, and let's start. Welcome, Jarryd. First of all, how are you doing this Monday night?
Good, Adam. How are you, mate?
Oh, living the dream, mate. Living the dream. Then ready to do this, then go play some Z-grade Oz tag. So fired up and pumped up. So look, let's start. Obviously, we want to talk about, well, I want to ask you first of all, you had a pretty big game on the weekend. How's the body recovered after that?
Yeah, good. Come away injury free, which is good. So I think that's a first all year. But I've got a massive graze along my leg, so I've just been kind of checking up on that, making sure I was getting infected. We're back on in 2 weeks. So, but no, unbelievable day down in Campbelltown. It was pretty emotional going back there for the first time. We literally had been planning this for about 4 weeks, and to see the response was amazing. Not only the response, but the boys that played down there. A lot of the guys I grew up with and either knew of or knew about. Had the Minto Cobras, a lot of my mates from there, and they were just talking about how much of a great day it was, and everyone catching up with each other. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring the community together. We wanted to raise funds for our Nines team, the Saints, and we did that. And we just wanted to have fun and put on a show for the community. And we're able to do that. I think it was over 1,500 people that rocked up, which you kind of just, blew our minds. We had no idea. It was raining before it. It was storming. We all went silent on each other for about half an hour. And I'm going, I wonder if he's just going to get caught off. Like, what's happening? But look, it pulled through in the end. I rocked up, couldn't get a car park. It was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable turnout, and full credit to the community in Campbelltown. I grew up there, and Eds and Minto, and so to see everyone, turn out and show out for our community, it was really special. And it's just the beginning. We want to do this every year, and we want to make it bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, it's important you mentioned that, because I said it's good to see obviously giving back to that community so much, because I guess it's where it's all began, and we'll get into the questions and we'll talk about your junior career a bit. I know you've had some pretty impressive records, obviously, with your sprinting stuff and that, but looking back at your junior career, was there any highlights or any records? Do you have many record breakers out in that area there?
Yeah,
that's
funny you mention that, actually, because I had a little kid come up to me and he was really excited. He was like, "Oh, yes, Jarryd, I beat you a 100-meter record." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, the 100-meter." And his dad come up. He's like, "Yeah, he beat it during the year," and it was actually awesome. Like I was just the way he said it was so humble, and I was actually, it was cool. And he thought it was cool as well. And then his mum actually sent me the photo of his record. Mine was 15:15, and he was 15.05. So that was awesome. As my junior days, yeah, probably. East Campbelltown. I don't think we won a comp at East Campbelltown. I think I probably did more winning at Cabramatta, to be honest. But yeah. I won the 12s actually. That was awesome. I played up a year. The team had been beaten 2 or 3 years in a row, and they couldn't beat this team called Liverpool All Saints. And they had this huge player called Liasu, who lived in Minto, and he's like a Jason Tomalolo, back in the day. And the big word on the streets for the last 20, 30 years is that he made a line break to win the game, and I was playing fullback, and somehow I took him down, and yeah, the streets still talk about it. So that was definitely my highlight.
Close your eyes and hope for the best.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I was closing my eyes, hope the best. Next thing I know, he tripped over me, So, yeah, that was a highlight.
Can we go back to that kid quickly? Because obviously, as I saw your story, it's pretty impressive. I was dying to ask you this. Was part of you like, oh, I reckon I could still beat that? Like, I reckon I could take it now and challenge this kid to a foot race? Or are you just humble and happy that he beat your record?
Nah. It was when I was 8 years old. Well, in the beginning, I was excited. I was, that's awesome, man. You beat my record, and that's great. Then when his mum sent me because I had my name on the race sheet, it still had my name on there saying, Jarryd Hayne, John Warby holds the record. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, oh, my name's going to be not going to be there anymore, So it was kind of sad. But look, records are made to be broken, and 15:05, at 8 years old, that's flying. And I said to his mum, I said, well, we'll have to get him in the academy, when he gets a bit older.
Yeah, 100%. We'll have to get him somewhere and see if he can end up at Parramatta in 10 years' time,
like
he did.
Exactly.
Guess that kind of brings to the next question, mate. How did you get to Parramatta? How's a kid from Campbelltown end up in Parramatta?
Yeah, so I was at East Campbelltown actually, and then we won the comp, and the team below my age group kind of struggled, and they wanted me to go back and play in my age group. But obviously I've just won the comp with playing upper age, and wanted to stay there. And so in between the off season, my age group ended up splitting up, and people kind of they couldn't get a team. So then one of the players from that age group said, "Look, I'm going to Cabramatta," and the dad, Jarryd Hayne, actually was like, "Look, I'll take him with me. Like you guys live near me, I'll pick him up for training." And my mum wasn't too keen on it because Cabra was so far away, and Charlie just said, "Look, I'm happy to take him." So Charlie took me for the first year, and Cabramatta was an unbelievable club, and that's literally how the team I was with at East Campbelltown kind of split up. There was no age group to go to, so then I ended up just randomly ended up at Cabramatta, and I stayed there, and then I met some boys at Cabra like Chris Keating, Trent Hodkinson, Tony Williams, and they all went to Westfield Sports, and then they ended up pushing for me to come to Westfield Sports.
And through that, is that then how you eventually ended up getting to Parramatta, and then what was the feeling of that debut game? Yeah, so they're
obviously in the Parramatta comp, Cabramatta, and it's literally the last team kind of from Campbelltown that are from the Parramatta comp, or closest team to Campbelltown. And you just go through the kind of junior system there. They had junior academies at 13, I think it was, and at 14. It's a funny story, and I love reminding him. Mark Horrow was one of our coaches when we were 14 years old, and he pulled us all in one day, and he goes, "Boys, talked about training and how hard you have to train." He said, "Listen, the stats are only 1% of you guys are going to make it. Only 1%." And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, can't be one. Not this group. We're too talented. Like we're all great players. It was me, Tim Manor, Trent Hodgson, Tony Williams, Tim Robinson. Who else? There was about 7 first graders, 2 internationals, and 3 state of origin players. So we proved that stat wrong. And look, our junior system was unbelievable. At Cabramatta, my halves were Chris Keating and Trent Hodkinson, and my winger was Tony Williams. So we had a really blessed. It's very reminiscent of that Penrith system that come through. The Crichtons, Cleary, Luai. And that was probably when Brian Smith left. Brian Smith was nurturing us to all be together. He'd seen us. He'd put us in these different kind of academies, sort of thing, and he was gearing us up to be the next crop of players that come through. And obviously when he left, everything fell apart. Then Tony left, Inu left, Hodko left. So yeah, the dynasty that could have been.
Definitely.
Yeah, man, that roster of guys is massive. By the way, shout out to some of the comments who are trying to recruit you, Jarryd. So we've got someone saying you should take Zach Lomax's spot on the wing, which if you're playing a video game, I'd plug you in there.
Yeah, funny how something happens like that.
Wait, maybe Rugby 360, they'd pay you $3 million, I reckon, just on their
Yeah, I know. Something.
Yeah, so get in touch if you're running Rugby 360, guys. We got Khaled trying to recruit you for the podcast as well. So we'll see how today goes. I just wanted to ask you about your first game and your debut season. So talk to us about that first game, and you came onto the scene so hot. Like I think it was 17 tries in 16 games that first year.
Yeah. So I've been playing New South Wales Cup for 2 years, and I was still only 18. And Jason Taylor was the coach at the time, and so I was knocking on the door at 18 years old, and when I was younger, there was no, I didn't really look at myself as an 18-year-old kid. I always, wherever I played, I wanted to stand out. That's always been my mentality. Whether I played, in the park with mates or up the street, whatever. Whenever I hit the pitch, I always wanted to be the best. And 18 years old, I remember Matt Peterson was in front of me, and I'm just like, when am I going to get my shot? At 18, when I look back now, I'm thinking, mate, 18 years old, you barely know how to buy a car, So, but look, my mentality, was different. And then Brian Smith just wouldn't play me. And JT, when Brian Smith got sacked in round 11, JT took over, and the first thing he called me in the office, he goes, "You're going to debut." I thought, "Oh, awesome! How good's that?" And I think there was another winger that was doubtful for the game as well. And we had a meeting and said, I forget his last name. What's the Wolfman's last name?
Williams.
John Williams, his brother. Yeah, it's not Dave. John Williams, his brother. And so me and John come in the meeting, and he said, "Look, if he's injured, John's going to come in." So I'm thinking, "Oh, okay. Well, does that mean that if he's not injured, I'm going to be out?" And JT pulled me aside after, and he just said, "Look, you're guaranteed a spot. You're playing this week. You're debuting." Wow, 18 years old, and we debuted against Penrith Panthers, and that was back when Pulatua, Nullavau, Clinton, just a huge pack, and they love bashing teams, and I was in for a big night. I remember when I was that age, my body wasn't really toned or strong, and going into games, you just get hammered, and so. That was probably the hardest pack to debut against, and I just held my own, and just did my best, getting the ball, just closing my eyes, and just hoping I wasn't going to get ragdolled or anything like that.
It's funny you mention that, because you obviously got the Rookie of the Year that year as well, NRL and Parramatta, so obviously off to a flying start. But I want to touch on you mentioned it, the whole JT and Brian Smith thing. Obviously JT handed, and as Para fans, the world's changed a lot. Social media now, you don't really miss much, and obviously forums and stuff. But back then, you saw kids coming through in, the Jersey Flag and the New South Wales, or not New South Wales Cup reserve grade and stuff. Watch them thinking, when's this kid going to debut? And as Para fans, remember going to all 3 games. I travelled down from Newcastle, so if there were 3 games on, we watched them all, which is something I'd love to see back again, that awkward gap in between. But we said, why isn't he debuting? Was there something with Brian Smith? Did he not think you were ready or something? Or was it, just JT just dialed more?
No, I think Brian was just that coach that always loved to, play mind games from what I could tell. He was all right with me, but, it was weird, because I remember a time where I come late to a game and the coach didn't want to play me. He wanted to punish me for coming late. I just got my times mixed around. And I'll never forget it. Brian come up to me and goes, "You're playing it still? Are you coming off the bench?" He goes, he wanted to drop you. I found out, and I said, "You're not getting dropped. You go off the bench. That'll be your punishment." And so there was still that perspective that Brian loved me, but for whatever reason just wouldn't debut me. And I don't know if that's probably didn't think I was mature enough, or his way of for me to try and continuously prove myself. And I was going well in the New South Wales Cup too, and I was only 18 at the time, and I think he probably knew my potential and knew that I was going to have a long career, and didn't want me to kind of jump at it so quick. I suppose now when you look, I've never spoken to him about it, but I think his philosophy was just to bring me on slowly, and let me really find my feet slowly, and kind of bring me on gently, where JT was a complete opposite. JT was like, "I'm throwing you with the Wolves. I've seen you play. I know that you're a fighter, and you're gonna, you know what I mean. You're gonna fight fire with fire." And I had to do that. Like my debut year, a lot of that wasn't talent. It was actually my mental toughness to get me through, because I'd get bashed every game. I was so skinny, and those were the days where it was tough. Like they wanted to get you. If you were a young guy coming in, they wanted to show you, hey, we're the big boys here. You prove to us you can handle it, and so, and even in the New South Wales Cup, I was getting that treatment too, and then I loved it. I kind of thrived off it, and knew what I was going to cop.
Yeah,
Hey, Jarryd,
yeah.
just on that mental toughness and your defensive approach early years, I remember you took more intercepts than any young winger I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was crazy. Was that an intentional approach? Like, was that coached? Was that instinct? Like, how did you come about sort of doing that?
Oh, that's just how I play,
Yeah.
and I've always been instinctive and try to read the play. And it was funny, one of my favorite players is Andrew Johns, and I'll never forget the intercept I took off him. Because I'd always watched him, I'd always studied the way he moved, and what he tried to do to defend defending lines. And so when he come down that short side, I knew that if he looked in, he was going to go long, and I knew that they'll chase some points. And I'm thinking Joey being Joey, he's going to go for the high risk play, and to be 18 years old and to be able to read a player of that caliber, and for it to come off was just, for me, it was like, it was weird. It was like, yes, I caught a ball from Joey and I wanted him. It's almost like I wanted him to sign it for me, like, you're my favorite player. Can you sign the ball I took off here, But for me, it's just I've always played like that, and I think that probably comes from, I grew up in Aids. I played for a lot of Aboriginal kids growing up, and when you play for a lot of Aboriginal kids, their style of play is very flary. Like when you play with them, and I always play with their cousins and things like that. And it was if you're losing the game, you had to do something freaky so you could tease the other bloke, And that's how I kind of come through with the whole concept of the flair in my game, and that's probably the Aboriginal influence I had in my game. That the chips, the chip and chase, the no look pass, all that sort of thing. I was doing that when I was a kid, because that's how Aboriginals play. They call it blackfella footy. Where you want to be tricky, you want to do something where someone remembers, and that really influenced my game because it's so much fun. That's the pureness of the game. And I think when you watch Aboriginal players play footy, they're just such pure. You call them they're instinct players. That's how they play. And those boys influenced me. The McGuinness boys, Frankie. I grew up with Frank McGuinness and Kevy's little cousins and that. So yeah, we used to play a bunch of footy in Edge growing up, and that's how we played. So I think that really influenced my game.
Yeah, that Parasite had a ton of that too, because we had like Fletty Mateo floating around then. Chris Ninu, I think Witters was still going at that point.
Yeah, then I was there. Then I was there.
He was the best, man.
Oh, him off the bench. I remember when we went on that 8-game run. When he come off the bench, he just changed the game. You couldn't defend him. He had so much skill. I scored a great try of him. He'd come down the sideline and just grub it. And it's one of them things you just know with Dino, like anything's on. He can find you for a long pass. He can kick for you. So he was awesome to play with.
Yeah, man, that's sick. And you mentioned Joey Johns and all that. Obviously, you debuted in Origin the next year, 2007. What was it like going from basically playing reserve grade to 12 months later playing State of Origin and being a star on that stage?
Oh, it just all happens so fast, and it's one of them things. Obviously, when you're young, you want everything to happen fast. You're like, yeah, I want to make this team, I want to make that team, and you make it, and it just flows. You don't really have time to think about it. And I think that's the last couple of years. I've really had time to reflect on my career and go, oh, that's cool, man. That's awesome. And even now, when I look now and I see the next generation come through, and that guy's 19 and that guy's 20. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Then I start to think where I was when I was that age. I'm like, oh wow, like I can't believe that at that age I was in that position, because you don't really think, you just do. And obviously making my debut at 19, obviously you have so many thoughts going through your head. But for me, I always just play tough footy first and worry about the flary stuff after. So I knew, in that game, just get my hit ups and try and make meters, and the rest will look after itself.
You said flary stuff. Isn't that the try down the sideline? Or was that a few?
Yeah, that wasn't really fair. I had nothing else to do. Like that's all I really had left. And I think when you, like I said, with playing, that Aboriginal influence, when you play footy, you're always thinking of what can you do in that position, And whenever I played touch footy, I played a lot of touch footy when I was a kid, but more street touch footy, not the proper, dumb stuff, the boring stuff. I played the flare touch footy where, it was one touch where you had to move the ball. You're in positions, you get caught with the ball. What are you going to do with the ball? And that's how I grew up. So obviously, when I got put in that position as a 19-year-old kid, I just knew, well, I've got nothing else to do other than to kick it, And I did that, and the ball bounced for me, and it got a great bounce. But again, that's what my childhood was based upon, just playing football. Never done with the footy.
I'm quietly confident that try in the modern day would have gone up as a try, and they wouldn't have had sufficient evidence they would have supported the live decision of try. That's for sure. Look, let's move on to 2009. I know it probably still burns. We won't get your thoughts on Melbourne. I think you've made that pretty obvious on Facebook.
I'm a bit on Facebook. Probably a bit added to it, but I love revving the fans up. And look, I'm obviously still passionate about the club, and I love the club. So yeah, I love stirring the pot. And like I think someone said, we never lost a grand final. We just cheated from one.
Yeah. It's pretty funny actually, because it was the Casper Patrol boys, and they've got a question to ask you later, and it's not related to that, so we won't throw that there. But look, I'll tie it all into one. So 2009 was obviously a roller coaster of emotions. Started the season pretty poor. Not you yourself, sorry. The team started pretty poor. You went to 5'8", obviously moved back to fullback there as well. What started that run? Personally, your own form and just the belief in the team, because like you said, it's funny listening to you talk about obviously Aboriginal influence and touch footy and throwing the ball around. When you look at that 2009 run after you say that, that's the shit we were doing week in, week out. We were just having fun playing footy. So your thoughts on your own performance there, and I guess the belief in the team, and what caused, I guess,
it's funny. It was around, I'll never forget around Origin. I've never really spoken about it publicly. So I remember we're in Origin, I think it was game 2 up in Queensland, and we played the Titans, and we just got beat with about 10 minutes left, and I remember looking at that game going, wow, if we can defend as good as we defended that night, and basically I can do the rest. Like if we can just defend and be within a try, like I had so much belief in my ability. I'm thinking, I can add value there. And so we went and played Origin, and I've come back, and then for whatever reason we lost so many players, but our defense was unbelievable. And it's probably something not spoken enough about. Folks like Todd Lowry, Benny Smith, like Kev Kingston was a big one for me. If you were to look at our try rate when he come on, I guarantee you it went through the roof. He would come on and just change games. And mate, I've never had such a connection with a hooker than him. I could be in the grandstand and call hot and he hit me. That's how good he was. And I think everyone remembers that try where I set 40 up against Newcastle. If you watch how far I am from the play the ball, all I'm saying is Kev. And he just knew whenever I called his name, he just pinged me the ball. He had that trust in me. And before he scores an unbelievable try. But, I think our defense was what stood out for me. And when we defended teams, they get frustrated, they get tired. And then that gave me the ability to attack, and Morty as well. Morty was unbelievable form. Robbo as well. And so we just had this ability to defend, and then whenever he got the ball, it was just like, we go through times where it was just hot potato. Just don't dive with the ball. And it wasn't really planned or game plan, but it was, Endo just gave us that freedom just to back your ability, boys, play footy. And Endo was one of them coaches that, he'd give you a game plan, but if you went out and did something else, but we won, he'd be like, yeah, sweet, done. You know what I mean? Like he was a very results, based coach where he would say, all right, boys, I want you to do this. We did it for 1 or 2 sets. We're like, that's not working. Let's try something else. If you try something else, it would work. Like he wouldn't have that ego or that insecurity of saying, no, you didn't listen to me. He's like, all right, sweet, if that's what you're saying. And then he'd talk about it and build off it, And so Endo was huge for that 09 run, allowing us just to have that freedom to play, not getting on our backs if something went wrong. Because it's obviously high risk, high reward footy. But for us, it worked more times than it didn't. And then, the boys' defence, the way we mate, that first quarter final against St. George, that first 20 minutes was unbelievable, And I've never been kind of in a team that just defended, And I've watched the game probably twice, in my lifetime, and even watching it, just going, bro, how did we defend like that? Like St. George had all the ball, all the attack. They had so many opportunities. Like I think Wendell was over the line. I think Brett Morris got pushed over as he was scoring. Like there were so many times that where our defense just showed up. And once we scored that try, I think it was in about the 26th minute, you could tell they just broke their back. Like they're just gone, are these blokes serious? Like we've just attacked for 20 minutes straight. We've got 2 points. These blokes, I did a bomb from halfway. And then I think it was Morty or Birdie. I think it was Morty just chased his heart out. gets a rebound back. Birdie's there under the sticks, you know. So that style of footy. It's one of them things too. Once you're on in that style, and it's a bit like Brisbane this year too. Once you're on, you just let it flow. You know, let the boys play footy. It's hard to explain. You know, you can't really explain it. But that's the beauty of rugby league. You know, there's some things that just don't make sense in a structured point of view. But when it's flowing, you just let it go.
Hey, Jarryd, just on that run there with the Dragons. Oh, yep. The week before, I just wanted to sneak in here, but the week before, right? Obviously, they belted us in that final round of the season. Was there an intentional play there, not to show our hand, or? Yeah,
there was.
Tell us about that, because I think that's a cool story, man.
I'll give you a funny story, Eric Grove, as well. So, beginning of the week, you know, Endo goes, all right, boys, there's no game plan this week. Win, lose, we're playing again. So we're all kind of, oh, yeah, sweet. He goes, behind you, Kalo, you're having the week off. Kick back. And so, train Monday, train Tuesday, and we didn't see Eric until the next Monday. You know, and he was all time. He's just like, everyone's going, anyone heard it from Eric? It's like, nah. But obviously, Guru's like, okay, well, if you're not taking the games this week serious, I'll see you next week, you know, and that was good. But we all knew how Guru was, and that was hilarious. But yeah, I remember playing that game, man, and it was just such a weird game. Like, we didn't want to be there. The coach didn't want to be there. If anything, I would have rather him play the whole, you know, New South Wales Cup team, because he basically knew we were going to play the same team. And so, for whatever reason, the Dragons got so much confidence from that game and thought, oh, these blokes, you know, they've lost their run. But, you know, it was an ambush because we literally had no game. And it was actually hard to play, because when we were out there, we weren't really trying either. Like, we weren't trying to do anything or score points. We were literally looking at the clock, just going, hurry up. Like,
this game. It's
funny.
I'm
like, what am I having a week off?
I remember being in the crowd and just copping an absolute shellacking from Dragons fans. And I remember this one bloke, he must have given it to me for 3 streets, like 3 streets walking back to the car, this bloke mouthing off at me. Well, you know, you remember the game pretty well, because it's one of the greats. I remember being up where all the Parramatta fans were in the corner section there. I was right on the end. And obviously the Dragons fans started leaving pretty much after Birdie kicked the field goal. Obviously to make it, you know, 19-12, and then we scored the try. Well, you scored the try. We didn't. I didn't. But I remember hanging over and I'm giving it to people on the way out, and I found that exact bloke, and you wouldn't believe it. He could not put his head down any quicker. It's one of my best memories of football, watching that bloke absolutely pour out. So
well, you would remember that. Remember, like, that night, and they were singing and they were carrying on. And so the week later, when I scored that try, that's why I put the finger to the mouth. You know what I mean? It's almost saying that there's no singing this week, you know. And so that's why I did it. Not a lot of people didn't realise why I'd done it. I'm like, well, if you're here the week before, you'd understand.
Yeah, the whole grandstand, wasn't it? It was just, when the Saints, because the week after we were singing, when the Saints go marching out, is what we were singing to them as they were leaving. So, a week's long time in footy.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that try that you did score, it was an absolute cracker of a try. I love the commentary from Rabs as well, but is that your favourite ever try that you scored?
Oh, not necessarily, because I just knew that the Dragons would be tied through the middle, and it was a long game. It was one of the hardest games we'd ever played. Like, it was that hot that day. Like, it was ridiculous. And so, yeah, I just remember they're going to be tied through the middle, you know, just trying to get it tackled and go that little bit extra harder. Favourite try, I don't know about favourite try. Probably the Origin one. But as far as a para try, I'd say it was up there. But, you know, I think that the Dragons players were pretty defeated by that stage. I think we're already in front by about 7 points. So, but yeah, no, definitely up there.
Chip and chase was all time, to be honest. The chip and chase. I remember that game pretty well, because I got into it and we were down, I think, 8-0 pretty early. I got there late because traffic was a nightmare to get in. And
that's one.
Yeah, it's when the tank was, I can't remember his full name because I probably can't pronounce it anyway, but when he broke his leg and never played again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. And he was obviously down, and, you know, obviously terrible thing happened. I reckon I would have missed the whole first half if that didn't happen, because I was that late to the game. I don't think I've ever been late in my life, but that's my favourite try. But let's move on, because it's a nice game. But 2010, it's funny you mentioned it before, Kevin Kingston. I think Kevin Kingston leaving the Penrith in 2010 was probably our downfall in 2010. I don't like, I think we saw the value added to the team. It's funny you mentioned how good his service was to you and stuff, but we seem to lose that spark. And we don't have to talk too much about the grand final because I don't want to go in the grand final knowing the fact that the team that beat us were, multi-million dollars over the cap. So I could sit here and ask you what you would change and, what went wrong in that grand final, but it doesn't seem fair to talk about it. So we're going to move on.
No, I like to answer because I think, what I said before, the reason we got there was our defense, and as much as Melbourne cheated, at the end of the day, we still had we just didn't defend the way we had defended that whole run. They scored some pretty simple tries. They weren't very, in the sense of not expected or not things that we hadn't seen before. Obviously they were creative, even getting Hoffley 1-on-1 with Robbo. That was good. But I think there was another one where I think Blairy went through the middle. And we hadn't conceded like that in months. And so when I look back at that game, that's where I really feel like the game got the better of us. I think it was a huge week. I'm sure a lot of the boys probably didn't think we were going to be in that position. So yeah, I think we really gotten there based on our defense and how resilient we were, and we just gave away too big of a lead. But to our credit, we come back within 6 points with 5 minutes left, which is unbelievable, especially when you put in perspective that how much they were over the cap.
And Billy took
Jarryd, I know you want to talk about defense here, but the comments are blowing up with all these references to your best tries. I was going to shout this one out from Yvonne. Length of the field try against the Panthers, who were down by 22, and you led the comeback there. That would be one of my favorites, where you scored from inside the in goal.
Yeah.
You beat one guy, then you just win, eh?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it was one of them things too. I just had, there was no other option. I literally caught it, had a defender, stepped, and then, like any ball runner, you're just looking for space. And, thankfully there was space, on the left edge and hit the gap and just pinned the ears back. Did me best, and thank God that there was no one quick chasing me. Otherwise, I was getting pretty tired by the end of it.
Yeah, mate, still had the plane at the end though, right?
Yeah, I still had the carry at the end. Had enough energy for that. And Birdie jumped on my back, and my back was killing me. The lower back made good.
It's funny. I remember being on a plane when I come across to America to watch you play in the NFL, and I remember this American. It's actually an Oakland Raiders, obviously now Las Vegas Raiders fan, and he's going to me, "Tell me more about this Jarryd Hayne." On the plane, and he pulls out his phone and and he wanted me to show him some highlights of him of your footy career. And I showed him that one. He goes, he needs to be punt returner. We need to get him into punt returner.
Yeah.
This bloke wasn't even a 49ers fan, but it was a perfect punt return. And that everyone obviously saw that. All the Americans loved it as soon as you went over there. But I'm skipping ahead a little bit too much because I want to talk about the Origin win in 2014. And I think that was your best year of footy as well, completely. I know 2009, the freaky stuff, but as a player and I guess maturity-wise, I feel like you're probably matured as a player in 2014. And after, I guess, 3 pretty rough years for Parramatta, you had some injuries yourself. What got you back to that form and, I guess, that Origin win and what that meant to you?
Look, credit's probably got to Brad Arthur as well. What he did, I think he kind of, he knew my skill set and he really gave me the freedom to play what I say. But then he also had things to set up around me as well, which is probably one of the first coaches that did that. A lot of coaches that I had wanted to game plan just solely around me, where he's footy smart was like, listen, we're either going to game plan around him or actually use him as a decoy, and I felt that's what worked really well, and that's what gave me that freedom to really open up. And he put a lot of pressure on the guys around me as well. When I get in certain positions, this is what I want you to do for him. This is how I want you to run lines or holes or plays, which was awesome. But obviously you got to execute as well. And I think for me, that really brought music to my ears. When he was real big on setting things up for me. We get in this position, I want you to run this play, or he'd ask my opinion on things, and I would put things in the game plan that I wanted as well. This week I've been watching this 1, 2, 3, and he'd be open to it as well. And that really worked well. And I'm certainly be talking a lot about defense, but that's probably where where we lacked. That 14 season, we scored plenty of points, but again we would have games where we kind of turned off, and didn't D up, as good as we could, because I think we beat the Roosters that year. We beat some pretty big teams that went on and had cracker years. Well, I think the Roosters won the comp the year before, and it was good. You beat some good teams, but yeah, unfortunately, we missed out in the 8 by 2 points.
As we're talking, I'm just thinking of all these highlight plays, like the try saver against David Staggs. I think we need to do a separate episode where we just go through your highlights and just talk through every single one.
Get some video back.
Yeah,
like 3 hours.
Again, a lot of the things I've done on the footy field, it's just I had no other option. Stagg was in that position. The only thing I could think of was just wrapping my arm around him and using. I actually used his body weight to flip him. And it's more of it's a bit of a jiu-jitsu move as well. We do a lot of wrestling, and so you start to understand how to use people's body weights to your advantage. And look, he was just in a position that there was no other way I was going to stop that try other than to get my elbow caught on the ground, lift, and as soon as he lift, I'd use his shoulder and momentum to try to flip him on my chest. And he had he was not expecting that at all. I'm sure he was. I don't think it's ever been done before on a footy field. So that was just one of them things that I had no other option, and I thought I'd give it a try, and it was lucky enough to come off. I still didn't know if I pulled it off or not. Well, I knew it was a good chance.
Is there a difference for yourself, the 2 Dally M medals, 2014 and 2009, or they're both as special?
Yeah, both are special. 09 was a special year. Probably did things that probably wasn't able to do again, and again, one of them things when the team's on, they're on. And that helped me get that. But I think 14, like you said, Adam, it was probably my most complete year. I did a lot of things in defense in that year as well. That probably stood out for me, and that probably wasn't known for. But I think when I used to watch blokes like Billy play, Billy did so many good things at defense that I really wanted to put that in my game, and I was able to do that in 14, and that's 14 was more of a complete year, and I think 09 was more the highlight year.
Let's move on to the NFL, and we're not going to go deep into this too much because Longy would talk for 3 hours about it.
We can, man. We can if you want.
Yeah. 3 hours about NFL, and he'll get everything thoughts about the current NFL and that as well. But I'll tie it all into one. And like what you achieved, first of all, was obviously incredible going over there at that age as well. I'll tie that into wish you go a bit young when you're a bit younger, obviously to give you more time over there as well. And I guess the biggest thing, like I said, I went over and watched you. Did you feel like you were wanted there? Like I remember watching you play against Detroit Lions. I was in Vegas. It's the game I missed. I was watching it in Vegas, and you started running back, and it was your best game by far. Like you absolutely killed it. I was going the week after. We're playing some little Rams, and obviously it's pretty bottom of the table kind of clash there. And you got on the field for one tackle, and I was just like, for me, it was like not playing. Well, Carlos Hyde come back, but for me, it was
they put John Harrison, I think.
Yeah.
That was, obviously it was huge, and we did go over in 2012. Me, Seth Paulo, and Tim Manor, and I remember back then I'm thinking, how good would it be? And 1, 2, 3, but back in those days, it was college, and you didn't get paid, So I'm trying to do the math. I'm thinking if I come over, that's 3 years. I'm not getting paid, and I'll be, I think I'll be 26 or 27 by the time I get drafted. I'm thinking this doesn't make sense, I just couldn't go through the college system, and that's what I really wanted to do, And had I won a comp, maybe I would have went earlier. I was obviously still chasing that as well. And so, in 2014, I just really felt like, I exerted everything I had for the club, and we still couldn't make the 8. And deep down, I didn't want to go to another club. I think, I've always had that feel of like winning a comp at another club just wouldn't feel the same had I won it at Para. And that's what really drew me to go away, and that's what I was like, well, what do I do? Do I stay here another year, do the same thing I've been doing for the last 5 years since 09, or do I try something different, and or do I go to another club? And I felt going to the NFL was the best option for me, or the funnest option. I always want to have fun in life, and that for me was the thing. I was like, well, I'll go over and try it out. If I can make a roster, I can make a roster. If I can't, I can't. At least I had to go, and that was always the mentality. And one of them things, a bit like when I was a kid, went over there, played, and just kept getting better and better every game. And they end up having to pick me. But a bit what you touched upon with the whole was I wanted there. I probably wasn't wanted there. My running back coach just hated the fact that a person outside of America could come and play their game. And it was funny. He actually told me when I left. And I was like, well, what do you think when I first came? And he was like, oh, for the first 6 weeks, I kept telling him they need to get rid of me. What am I doing here? I've got no idea. I can't get the players. I can't get the concepts because I literally couldn't. And he just death-fried me. He what are you doing here? Why are you doing that? And things like that. But my resilience got me through it, and I was just like, well, I'm going to stay until you cut me. I'm not. Don't think you can push me out. And so I ended up staying, and it was actually funny. They thought when I put the pads on, I started hitting. That's when I was going to leave. But I knew, you put the pads on me, then I'm going to show you who I am. And they put the biggest linebacker they had on me, and which in essence was actually to my benefit because I knew what he was going to do. So there's this drill they do where they have the running back stand with the quarterback next to the quarterback, and you got to do pass protection. But they literally let the linebacker do what he wants. So he can run 100 miles an hour and run over you, run through you, run around you. And when they had the biggest linebacker there waiting for me, I was like, I know what he's going to come straight through me. So I got up early, got my head right under his chin, and everyone went quiet, and everyone kind of shifted the gears. Oh, he can play, he can play. So
sounds like what you see in one of those like American movies where they just let you get lined up just to see if you're tough enough, and that's pretty much what seemed to happen in that situation. But
100%. I knew exactly what they were trying to do too, because the coaches would obviously speak to each other, and that he would have said, "Hey, put Moody on me," and tell him to go through me. I wouldn't be able to handle it, and I just lined him up and gave him the business.
Let's go to the return. Obviously, you had that quick rugby sevens of Fiji, which obviously would have been an amazing experience for you as well. And you represented Fiji in a rugby league as well. But Parramatta fans want to know this one: the Titans situation. Oh. Mate, if I could have $1 for every time I've been asked this question and sent in a DM in the last couple of weeks. So obviously, like 2016, the Parramatta Eels obviously had the salary cap stuff. Now, I'll tie it all into one. And first of all, we know it obviously hurt you playing Parramatta because you never played Parramatta.
It was, ironic.
And then the other thing they want to know is, was the NRL trying to guide you to the Titans or something? Were they trying to guide you away from Parramatta? A lot of people have that theory.
So what happened? Me, obviously when I quit and come back, and me and Brad had meetings. I'd spoken to Brad, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll get the deal done." I'm like, "Beautiful, done." And so we literally waited. Then Ian Schubert, acting CEO at the time, was on holiday. So I'm thinking, you got your best player wanting to come back. Your CEO's on holidays. Can no one else do it? So we waited. We literally waited for him to come back. And in the meantime, I'm getting all these other offers, and Japan Rugby. I had about 4 or 5 other NRL clubs. And so we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And then it got to a point where we started kind of investigating other clubs. And then my manager at the time, obviously stole beef, he actually spoke to someone within the NRL, and they literally said our contract will not be registered this year. Another contract. And that was the craziest thing is too, because you got to remember during the year they let Nathan Peets go, so they could be under the salary cap. So Parramatta couldn't actually sign me.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, no one seemed to remember that. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to explain myself when I'm signing at the Titans and going, there was no contract. I didn't have a contract. And then obviously with the media and things like that, they play on emotions. They didn't want to write the facts, But Parramatta couldn't sign me in 2016. There was no movement in the salary cap. And if people remember, they got rid of Nathan Peets so they could be under the salary cap. And at that stage of my life, I was like, I want to play football. Like, it's halfway through the year. If you can't sign me, I'm going to go somewhere where I can play football. And that's what it come down to, And obviously it was hard, but I think the hardest thing was not Parramatta not coming out, because I think then once I signed with the Titans, Parramatta's statement that they offered me a contract, which was complete garbage, and they did that to try and keep the fans on side, which was it's pretty disappointing, For me, it's like I did the honourable thing. I've waited. I think I've waited about 6 weeks. So I had contracts for 6 weeks, and I literally brushed all the contracts. And then my managers happened to be up in Gold Coast, and they spoken about how I hadn't signed anywhere, and that's how the conversation started. So there was no inkling that the Titans wanted to sign me within that 6 to 8 week period. And it basically comes down that Para couldn't do it, but they didn't want to do the honourable thing and just come out and say, hey guys, I don't think you remember 2 months ago we had to let Nathan Peets go so we could play for points. And look, that was obviously disappointing. And I try to speak about it in my interview when I signed for the Titans. And I had a great time at the Titans. I think they're a great organisation. I think they run unbelievable up there by Beck and a partner Fazell up in the gold. I've got the utmost love and respect for them guys and what they're trying to do up there. I think it's awesome with Matty John jumping on board. But look, at the end of the day, Parry didn't have a contract for me. It's plain and simple.
That's
one
funny.
Of your greatest. I was just going to say one of your greatest Titans moments was out at Campbelltown, where this is my house. Came out after the field goal. I think Katoni Staggs has stolen that now. I think up in Brisbane playing the Dolphins.
No, he said home. I was hoping he was going to say house. Actually, I'm thinking, what would you say home for? That doesn't suit that kind of expression, like when you're layering up and you're doing something like that. This is my home. I thought he was going to say house, but look, that was actually the first time I'd ever played at a professional level at Campbelltown. That is home for me. I'm a Campbelltown boy. I'm a Seatown boy, through and through. And so first time back there, and Ash Taylor had 2 cracks at the field goal, and I just said, watch out, young fella, let the old boy take over. And I was lucky to get it, and what a day that was. That was awesome. That's one of my career highlights, to be honest. To go back to your childhood ground. I played grand finals on that ground as a 9-10-year-old. So yeah, to go back there, probably not the colours that I thought I would, but nonetheless, it was a special day.
We got there eventually anyway. You got back to Parramatta 2018, and we don't need to touch much on that really. And I think we've answered a lot of the next questions anyway we had lined up. So we'll skip a couple. And I guess, you finished your last NRL game in Parramatta colours, and obviously not the way you wanted to finish, and I guess not the way it was deserved to finish, with hoping for an NRL parade or, a grand final or something like that. Like, how do you want to go out in rugby league now? Like, obviously you played for Wentworthville last year. Like, what's your ideal finish? Because I was so hoping you played for Fiji. Obviously, you're part of the coaching staff, but I think hoping you played for Fiji. But like, how do you want to go out, and what's your plans after footy now?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because a lot of retired players, they do get upset when they leave, and they get dirty. They look at things they could have done, or they feel like they've things happen to them that they're not happy with. But when I look back at my career, I did it my way, man. I had fun, and when I look back, I don't look back and go, what if? I look back and go, you know what, I'm actually grateful I got the years that I had, and I was able to do the things I had, because I did it my way. I played my own footy, I was true to myself in the way I played. I didn't get influenced by coaches. I didn't get influenced by the outside noise. I was me, and so many ex-players, they actually don't watch the game anymore. They hate the game, you know what I mean? Because they listen to coaches. They got injuries, and they listen to physios about go back and play, but they made it worse. They had to retire, So a lot of boys are dirty on the game, But I'm not. I'm happy, I did it my way. I played my football, and that's how I want to be remembered. And I'll play to the rules for life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. It's funny, man. I'm surprised not more ex-NRL players play footy, but it's almost like they're too embarrassed or their ego's too big. I played in the NRL. I don't play park footy. I'm like, I come through park footy. Park footy made me who I was. I'll play any park. I normally play touch football on Monday nights. I play touch football on Tuesday nights. I play soccer on Thursdays. So for me, and I've always said I'm an athlete. I never really segregated myself to rugby league. I was like, no, I'm an athlete. I'm always going to be an athlete. For me, I don't care how I'm perceived or how things happen. As long as I do it my way and I'm true to me, I think that's just how I live too. And so for me, I've loved my career. I don't look back. I don't go, but I deserve another game. And even for Fiji, I could have easily played for Fiji this year. But I love that jersey too much. I'm not going to put the jersey on if I don't believe I can do a job. And it's as simple as that. And if that means I don't play at that level again, then so be it. I've got too much respect for my country and for the jersey to think that it owes me something. It doesn't owe me anything. I had fun in that jersey, and I respect it immensely. And so, I'll only do something if I believe I can do it. And that's the same thing for Wendy. I told the guys at Wendy, I said, look, I need to get my body right in the next couple of months, and if I come good, I'll think about it. But my priorities now are obviously getting my body right, setting up my academy, and that's where I'm at the moment. But but as far as legacy and things like that, man, I love what I've done, man. And there's no looking back or looking over the shoulder or what ifs. I would have loved to be able to play another game of NRL. Of course, anyone does, but no one's outrun Father Time. So 37. For me, I'm fortunate enough to be able to celebrate my career, and my kids found comfort. When I was away, looking at my career highlights and things like that, and they still watch it now, which is fun, and you see their eyes light up. So it's been awesome, and like I said, my priorities now is getting the body right. If the body's still able to go around next year, I will, and get my academy set up.
That's perfect.
Jarryd,
Sorry,
I'm seeing that little spark in your eyes, mate. Like when you said you're an athlete, I'm seeing something. And if I was running Rugby 360, I'd be coming knocking with $1 million a year. Hypothetical question for you, bro. They come knocking $1 million a year, 3 years. It's a lower grade comp. You'd tear up anyway. Would you consider something like that?
No, not really. I mean, I'd be flattered by it. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think so. I think, look, I want to get my academy set up. I've just played a year of footy, and I was injured every second week, third week. So it's not
right. It's a bit easier.
Yeah, you're right. But I've got a young family as well, so for me, it's kind of I'm excited about like the academy journey that I'm on, and we just launched today, so that's exciting for me. And I don't know. I haven't really thought about it, but I doubt it. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't get on the field for any. I don't know how I'm going to get on the field anywhere else. So, it's about academy for me now, and the family, and going from there.
We'll go to the
academy. We've got a few commenters. People have come through. They've signed their kids up apparently. So I think a lot.
It's gone absolutely crazy, man. It's actually been pretty, almost pretty emotional, the response. I've got people wanting to come down from North Queensland, Tamworth, Goulburn. It's been a hectic day. It's something I'm passionate about. I've been working with Tony Basher at Australasia Soccer Academy, so just really using his blueprint. What he's been able to do with the kids there. He's had an unbelievable academy for 20 years, and he's been telling me for about 20 years that I need to open an academy. And he's successful for that long, and finally listened to the advice, and it's something I'm kind of passionate about. Being like you said before, been on the PG and coaching staff, and just to be around that environment. It's one of them things. I never thought I'd get into coaching. As a player, you're thinking, man, what's an ex-NRL player still doing around football, man? What do you want to break or something different? But I've been able to do that. I was doing a bit of building for a bit. But football is one of them things. And sometimes you don't even realise it. Like I'll be talking to someone, like a mate or a friend. I'll start talking football, about certain plays or systems, and they're just looking at me going, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, how do you not understand that? And it's so easy. 1, 2, 3. If he hits there, that means he's at the back and he's going to jam. I'm like, how do you not get that? But I'm like, wow, sometimes, you forget that what environment I was in. And I was around football for almost, 15 years. So, got a bit of experience, and, happy to share it with the next generation.
We'll move on to some of these quick fire fan questions, and we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah.
We promised 30 to 45, and we always knew we were going to go longer. So, funny you mentioned one game, and I know you would have seen the highlights from last year of Brad Takarangi almost murdering someone on a football field in the charity match and taking out something that never played before. But the Sports Shed TV boys want me to ask, I think it's about February next year, what are the odds of getting you on the field for that charity match as the guest ex-NRL player?
Yeah, right. I have to see how the body's going and what date it is. So, I've seen Tak as that, the big bully,
I said to him, look, if we can get him, he's got to wear the 6. I said, I'm wearing the 7 though, because I'm done playing in the forwards. I'm getting too old.
Let me be your back rower then, mate.
No, I don't want to do the tough stuff anymore. This one comes from the Cast Patrol boys. There's always a lot of comparisons about your 2009 season to, Ben Barber, Reece Walsh. Now, I think it turbos as well, those freak runs. We're going to take you out the picture. Out of those 3, Barber, Tom Dvojevic, and Reece Walsh, who had the best season individually?
Oh wow, we got Reece in there too. Oh, it's tough. For me, like, you know, and I said it on Facebook. You know, for me, it's Reece. You know, he was the only one out of all of us that was able to get a ring, and you know, I think his influence on the game. I mean, he was around great players as well, but at the end of the day, if Reece doesn't beat Reece, they don't win. You know, so you know, and I said it after they won. You know, it always get compared, and you know, Justin Horry actually made a good point of it. He's like, whenever anybody has a good year, I'm kind of the first one they always compare it to. You know, and so I think Reece is going to take that mantra now, you know, saying that the year he had, and obviously getting the ring at the end of it, Clive Churchill, you know. So, yeah, I think, you know, my 100-meter record got broken, and then obviously the everyone compares to got broken as well.
It's a year of everything getting breaking for you. Let's ask you this one as well. This one comes from a Christian from Salford. I think you might know him. He wants,
up there.
Yeah, he knew something was coming. He wants to know if you've been jumping in any lifts lately. You got to tell the story. He sent me a paragraph. It was that long, but it's absolutely brilliant. Go on, let him know. We'll finish with some humour.
One of the dumbest Islander stories ever. So me and Aquila Uarte, we're in the under-19s New South Wales State of Origin team, and for whatever reason we've gone, let's go to the top level, and then we're going to press the bottom level, and we're going to see how fast it goes, and we're going to jump and see how many levels we jump when it goes down. So we literally went to the penthouse for whatever reason, and I think it was because we like you couldn't get access up there, but for whatever reason the lift wasn't, the security in the lift wasn't working that day, so we were able to go up to the top. And we literally went up to the top, pressed ground, and once the momentum started going, we thought we'd jump and see how like it was going to be this crazy fall. And anyway, we've both jumped at the same time, mate. Hit the elevator. And the emergency brakes have come on, and it's dropped for about 5 minutes. Going bang, bang, the loudest noise, bang, bang, bang. We're just gone like that, shit ourselves. We got stuck in there for like an hour and a half. We're trying to call people, get us out. We're stuck. Help, help. Like we couldn't get out, and for about 45 minutes, no one was responding. And then we've come down. All the boys are in the room. Go, why did none of you answer your phones? We've been stuck in there for an hour and a half. We're like. We were losing it, and we started doing. That's what we started doing. We started doing videos to our parents. We think we thought we were going to die. We thought we were going to die.
Wow.
The emergency brakes were going to like loosen up, and it was going to drop us. So that went through our heads for whatever reason. So we actually, there's about a 5-6 minute video of me and the crew saying goodbye to our family.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we're 19 and 18 years old.
You learn a life lesson. It's funny because you actually said that shorter than Kristen actually typed it, because he mentioned they went to Cold Rock and they did all these things the whole time you were in the lift. So that's absolutely brilliant. Well, we'll wrap it up there, guys. Obviously, we went a fair bit over time there as well, but we'll wrap it up there. I want to say massive thanks to Jarryd. Like Joel said, mate, you've answered every question. You got a future in this. Like, I don't know what the future holds for you. Obviously, you talk about your academy and stuff as well, but love to see you do some media stuff. Love to do some stuff throughout the year, to be honest. Like, I love when you analyze, obviously, the games. So what I'd love to do, if we can in the future, we can off record and stuff, is get you to break down some of Parramatta's highlights throughout the year or something, because that would be absolutely brilliant. Because it's the way you talk about the game still. You've never lost your footy brain, that's for sure. It's brilliant to hear.
Yeah,
so
thanks. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Like sometimes, like you don't know how it comes across, and when I talk with my mates and stuff, I'm just talking normal, and they've also mentioned it. And yeah, I do want to get into that space. I try to get it, I try to break it down on Facebook, but my grammar's not the best, so I'm not too sure people can understand me half the time, but I mean well, but yeah, no, I think the podcast, and I want to do something where kind of, called the breakdown, where I'll break a game down, and I'll break a team system down, what they're looking for, what they're trying to do, and I think it's pretty cool too. I've been in an NRL system, and I understand that teams have game plans every week. So for me to be able to look at a team and be like, all right, I can see their game plan. This is what they're trying to do. This is who they're trying to attack. And sometimes, teams will go away for a couple of weeks, but then they'll play a certain team and they'll bring it back. And when I watch it, I can pick up on it. I can see who they're trying to attack, what they're trying to do. So yeah, something like that next year, I think I'll get into and breaking teams down and seeing their structures. I think it's fun, to think that and it comes from coaches as well. A lot of there were times when I played footy or in attack where I'll pass a ball blind because I knew the defensive system. And obviously from the good coaches that they're more consistent with the defensive system, because the thing is, their system's so good that very rarely you get put in positions that you can throw long balls or you can put them, under pressure. But when you do, you have to take the opportunity, So I think I remember one against the Manly Sea Eagles playing at Brookvale and literally got the ball off Matty Keating and just looked to kick the ball and I hit Birdie on the chest because I knew their defensive systems that when it gets broken down, they're just going to jam and shut the play down. They were so aggressive at that. Obviously, Des has a system and have been doing it for a number of years. So I knew once if I would get into that spot, I'm hitting Birdie without looking at him. And being able to break that down because there's still similarities in that. I think Bellamy's still got a very similar system. Robbo's got a certain system that he runs. I think is really good, and obviously Madge does as well. A lot of good coaches have systems that the boys really stay to the whole year, and consistency is what good coaches look for, and the good teams do it well.
Awesome. Well, like I said, opportunities always there. If you want to get on and do that breakdown stuff, we'd love to have you, and we'll talk about it throughout the year. But I think you're going to have podcasters coming at you from everywhere after tonight because the comments said you spoke so well, and it's great to see. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Look, we're going to do that giveaway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break that giveaway up and give everyone a chance. I'm going to put up a post tomorrow for that giveaway, and I'm just going to want your favourite memory of Jarryd's career, and we'll go from there and pick a winner off that. So thanks, everyone, and good night.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to meet you, bro.
No worries.